Hey, thanks for dropping by to the Planners on Purpose podcast, created by Naomi Tucker, CMP. Now, this space is for the event planners to encourage and empower you so that you can fully live your life on purpose. So before we dig in, please take a moment to subscribe so you get future shows. Now, here she comes, your host, Naomi.
Well, hello everyone, it's Naomi. Hope you're doing really well today. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Planners on Purpose podcast. I'm excited to be with you, sharing with you today. And I wanted to share something about taking action, and not just taking any action, it's taking imperfect action. And what got me thinking about this as a subject for today's podcast was just some goals that I personally have set for myself for the end of the year, or just for this month, or just for this week. And many times we set the goals and we have high expectations in mind, but when it comes to actually doing what you need to do in order to get to those goals, sometimes it looks very different for us than it did when we wrote those goals down. Have you ever had that? And in one of the previous episodes, we talked about finishing the year strong. We definitely want to be able to do that. But sometimes in order to finish strong, that means us taking some imperfect action. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. And just share some things that have been coming up for me around this. Now, many of you probably know this month you're seeing episodes coming at you every single day. Well, that is a goal of mine for the month of November, is to do one podcast every day. And when I say that it is a journey, it definitely is. It is not easy to put out podcasts every single day, making sure that we have something to say, and what should we say and how should we say it. And then not just that, also the technical aspects on the back end of it to make it happen. What this has been teaching me, though, is that I have learned a lot in the process, and I feel, getting better at the process in doing it, getting quicker. And that's one of the real reasons why I wanted to go ahead and do this for this month. That is just an example of taking imperfect action. Many times we try to make things so perfect, and we really rub up against perfectionism and trying to be able to have those actions completed that we need to. And although perfectionism may seem really good, and it seems like this, very precious thing that we want to obtain, it isn't ideal. And many of the times we're showing ourselves a disservice by aiming for perfectionism. So what stops us from taking action, right? I wanted to talk about that. There's so many things that stop us from taking action in order for us to be completing our goals and our objectives. And it can be very simple things like, I need to call a client and deliver some unfavorable news to that client. So many times, because of the hardship or the frustration that's in needing to deliver a piece of information that might be unsettling, it makes us procrastinate on taking that action. How can you deliver some bad news? You can sugarcoat it, but still it's bad news, right? And sometimes those type of things prevent us from taking the action. So other areas is just complete another frustration. There's frustration in a process, right? The process is so complex, not even complex. It's just clunky. I think there's a difference between complex and just straight up clunky, and it doesn't work well. And let's say you're not, the person that is supposed to change things, right? Or to change them at that particular moment is just not an ideal time frame to say, hey, we're going to change this process. But sometimes you're going through a process that's very clunky, and that can also just cause frustration, and it can prevent you from actually taking action in certain things. I remember just being at a particular company that I was working at, and there were different forms you had to fill out for different things. And sometimes that was the reason why certain planners weren't doing the things they needed to do, is because the way to get to completion was not easy, right? So many times what stops us from taking action is a clunky process, or things are just not easy. Another reason why we stop taking action is fear. Like I mentioned before, fear or frustration can prevent us having a tough conversation. And also, many times, what stops us from taking action is overwhelm, just being completely and utterly overwhelmed at the intensity and the amount of items that we have on our plate to do. We don't know where to start. And it's really hard when we're in a state of overwhelm to think logically and say, what can I do first? What should I be doing first? So these are just some things that just makes us stop taking action. Another thing that I'm thinking about right now is when you're pivoting. Sometimes when you're pivoting and you have to change directions just out of the blue, it leaves you at a loss. Like, oh my goodness, well, that didn't work out. So now we have to shift and move direction, right, to another thing. Many times this may happen, let's say if you have a event that was going to be held in a year, but something's happening that's preventing that group from having that event on that day. And maybe they have to shift to the next year. And you've already done like literally all the planning, but you have to shift. And sometimes those pivots can cause you to stop and can cause you to just lift up your hands like, okay, well, goodness, what gives? Should I do anything right now? Because things are just changing so fast, right? So there are so many things that stop us from taking action. But many times when you do stop taking action, what ends up happening is you become, let's say, a clog in the wheel that is just stopped, and things aren't necessarily flowing like they need to flow. Especially if you're a business owner or if you're a leader, the buck tends to stop with you. So when there's questions that need to be answered and when there are things that need to get processed, there's this workflow, and let's say you're a part of that workflow, but you're not taking action because of some of those things that I mentioned, things can just get backed up and then get backed up and then get backed up. So what do? How can you shift into taking more action, taking more imperfect action, right? When we have action, things flow much better all around. The key is to just get things in motion. Regardless what kind of motion we get it in, let's get it in motion. And many times we want the forward motion. We want things to move forward. We want people to be able to do their part, speak into things that we have going on so that we can just keep moving the needle forward. How do we do that? Many times it's helpful to clarify your vision. That's one of the ways that you can shift into more action, because most of the times when we're frustrated and when there's fear and when there's, just even perfectionism, we have to remind ourselves of what is really the true vision for this project, for this event, for what this client wants. When you clarify your vision, it really can help you because it may open up an opportunity for you to move forward towards that vision versus getting stuck into some details that really don't matter as much, because what matters is us moving forward. This can just help you make sure you are making the right decisions for your business, for your event, for yourself. So clarify your vision is one way that you can shift into more action. Ask yourself those questions. What are we really here for? What is this about? What is the ultimate goal? And when you get the answer for that, then that may open up an opportunity for you to make a decision. One book that I really like, and I like dropping books, is 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Such a great book. Page turner. And Mel has this down-to-earth spirit about her that is just amazing, and I love it. And the book really goes around this premise that says you have this gut instinct to make a decision, and really many times, over 90% of the time, that gut instinct that you have when you're making a decision is the best decision for that particular moment, right? So just count down from 5 or count up to 5, however, which way you want to do it, and count to 5 and just make your decision. And it's just as simple as that, because 80% of the time you're going to be, or 90% of the time, you're going to be right on target for what you need to do. And if you're not on target, and if it's a mistake, and if you didn't make the best decision, then you can always refine it. But at least you're moving it along. You're getting it out there. You're shipping it. For those of you that may like Seth Godin, he's another marketing expert, and he coined the phrase to ship it. And I love that phrase too. Sometimes progress is better than perfection, and many times your B+ has got to be enough. What matters is getting it done, getting it moving so that you can go on to the next task. So ship it, get it out the door, get it off your desk, and don't let it stew. I hope that helps you with some tips on how you can shift more into action. Things might not be as perfect as you want, but they will get done. And it's really important to have some flexibility about what's coming in and off of our desk. Understand that it doesn't have to be perfect. We know that our clients hold us to a very high standard. We definitely want to deliver excellence. We definitely want to deliver these great and fantastic and phenomenal events. We need to take imperfect action, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Things just need to move, and we need to generate more forward energy about the things that we have on our desks. So we want to be able to make the right decisions, put the right things in front of the right people, and make sure that we're relying on our teams in order to get the right questions answered, get the right comments be heard around certain things so that we are able to move forward. So if you find yourself stuck, find yourself frustrated, not able to move forward, that may mean that you need to evaluate where you are. Just take one foot forward, put in some imperfect action, and get things going so that you are able to continue to move forward, release yourself of that frustration, and even release yourself of stress by doing these steps. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. It was great to talk about taking imperfect action, and I look forward to talking to you on the next episode. So until then, stay on purpose.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, hit the like button and tell us how much you enjoyed the show by leaving a message in the comments. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.